man, people are just pumping out fucking reacts to PoE stuff now. Dude, I'm a bad content creator. I should just be like, oh, this is in the patch note. Let me make a 15-minute video telling you exactly what they told you in the fucking patch notes and be excited about it. It's like, they are pumping out bullshit. The asynchronous trade thing? Holy shit. So DarthMicrotransactions has a interview here.
0.3.0 is finally releasing, and it's seeing the introduction of Act 4. So can we get just a very quick breakdown of what can we expect in Act 4?
Yeah, so what we're really keen to do here is have an act that feels quite different than the other acts. So it's very open. You can kind of go wherever you want. You get that feeling of like, you know, you open the map. I could go anywhere. Every island is available for you to choose right from the beginning. And so, you know, you pick one and you sail off in the sunset and have that sort of feeling of exploration. And it's really something, as I said, it's quite different than something else that you've had in PoE.
I did not catch that first question. We'll go again.
It's nice.
And then I'll start cooking.
0.3.0 is finally releasing, and it's seeing the introduction of Act 4. So can we get just a very quick breakdown of what can we expect in Act 4?
Yeah, so what we're really keen to do here is have an act that feels quite different than the other acts. So it's very open. You can kind of go wherever you want. You get that feeling of like, you know, you open the map. I could go anywhere. Every island is available for you to choose right from the beginning. And so, you know, you pick one and you sail off in the sunset and have that sort of feeling of exploration. And it's really something, as I said, it's quite different than something else that you've had in PoE. It's nice. You know, it's nice to have that feeling sometimes.
Do you have multiple options, but you're not necessarily required to do all of them?
Yeah, so effectively, you know that there are 3 things that you need to find on different islands. You actually don't know where they are, and in fact, every league, they actually move around which islands they're on, so there's kind of like you don't always know, like I go to exactly these 3 and make the act really short every time. We actually did quite a lot of dynamic stuff with the quest too, where, depending on which island a particular quest goes on, it actually changes how it works a little bit. So, for example, there's like a Karui elder you need to rescue. Like, if he, in one situation, he might be like held by, this giant guy on one of the islands, but if he's on this other island, it's like he's been impaled by a spear because, one of the shrikes have done that to him. So, there's stuff like that that's kind of interesting that we had to do as well.
So then, let's say you immediately get lucky and you find the 3 pieces you're saying you need right off the bat. Is there incentives to continue to go to the other islands?
Of course. So every island is going to have a quest objective that's kind of like you're going to want to do. Like there's like either like static quest rewards or things like that 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 you're going to want. So you probably do want to do it. But I just wanted to make sure that every time you play a new league, you just get that feeling of exploration again. So that's why we want to do that.
Okay, well, that's going to beg the obvious question of what happens after Act 4? Are we going into, Cruel, Act 5, 6?
Definitely, especially with 0 to 0 and everything, we knew that removing Cruel was just like a hugely important thing. Like,
it changes every league.
Obviously, we never really wanted Cruel to exist. Right? Like, in an ideal world, we would have just had all the acts and that would have been the campaign and everything like that. And so then there is the obvious question, okay, so you finish Act 4, you've done 4 acts out of 6, how does it work? So we were kind of like, okay, well, what if we pulled effectively like, in PoE 1 where we had the when we released Act 5 and like, oh yeah, and then there's 5 more acts after that as well. That was like kind of that same feeling we wanted to give. So effectively what we've done is we've created 3 temporary interlude acts. And when I say temporary, what I mean is as soon as we add Act 5, they're going to come out again. They're kind of like as cool as we could deliver something. There's obviously a lot of asset reuse and stuff like that, but it will be unique and interesting. There's a storyline to all of them. You can do them in any order. And it's kind of just like your bridge into endgame. So I think that's going to be pretty fun. And there's a lot of new bosses there as well. So,
and even though we intend to remove them, they are canon. Like it is, embracing the actual lore of the game and the narrative.
Like they're sort of untold stories. In fact, the funny thing about this is like, so we start off with like, okay, we're going to make these things where we're not going to necessarily put as much effort into them, but then we developed the storyline and everyone started saying, hey, why can't these be in the game permanently? Like it's so cool. So I kind of had that problem going on a little bit.
Did it give you a bit of a freedom to do something since it's a one-off and it will be removed later and it's like an interlude act? Did it give you a freedom to put something into the game you might not have been able to before, but you've been kind of wanting to?
Like it's not so much that, it's more just that like you get like freedom to not have to have the same like I don't know. Like when you're making new a new real act, as it were. It's like, you have to do new monsters, and like every boss has to be completely new. You're not allowed to have any, like, it lets us do a little bit of just like fun kind of like mix and match and like do some stuff like that, which is quite good. But the other thing is nice about it as well is that all that content that we put in there, all of that will go into endgame as well. So all of the like actual areas and bosses and all that stuff, like none of that's just going away ultimately. Like it'll all be there. The main thing that's going away is you won't have that storyline to play through anymore, which is kind of what holds it all together, I guess.
So it sounds like we should expect many new maps in the end game.
Yeah, there's quite a few. So we're kind of doing a bit with that as well, because we've also got a system where there's kind of like new mechanics in the Atlas, which I'll leave Mark to describe about that, since he's more the end game kind of guy.
Okay, there's a lot going on there. One of the things we've done is we've taken effectively, the interlude's kind of split into a few parts. There's like a way to subdivide it. So obviously right now you have the citadels at the high end to get access to the Arbiter. What we've done is we're going to take the Act boss of Act 4, and of those 3 parts of the interlude, we're going to take the final boss of each and have those be kind of uberified in the end game. And you can find them in specific biomes. So like the water biome, for example, given that Act 4 is an island act, will have a thing that can appear that's like a big maelstrom in the middle of the water, and you have to find there's various different objectives where you can like dispel the magic of the maelstrom, revealing the map there, and thus you go there and fight this kind of like uber act boss, which come with their own full reward set. So we're adding 4 new boss mechanics. They're not like pinnacle bosses, but they are kind of more mid, because I'd actually say you've got your pinnacle of the end game, you've got your start, and in between it's very just kind of linear and there's not too much going on. Like sure, you got the leagues, but with the actual core mechanics there's not a huge amount of like variance and exciting stuff to find quite yet. We got a decent way with adding some, but we need more, so this is a step towards that. So that's like using Uber versions of those things in the campaign there as well. So even when that interlude goes, those mechanics will still stay. Well, unless we decide that we can upgrade them, change them, or do whatever. You never know with these things, but the intention is they're not like pinnacle bosses, but they are kind of more mid, because I'd actually say you've got your pinnacle of the end game, you've got your start, and in between it's very just kind of linear and there's not too much going on. Like sure, you got the leagues, but with the actual core mechanics there's not a huge amount of like variance and exciting stuff to find quite yet. Like we got a decent way with adding some, but we need more, so this is a step towards that. So that's like using Uber versions of those things in the campaign there as well. So even when that interlude goes, those mechanics will still stay. Well, unless we decide that we can upgrade them, change them, or do whatever. You never know with these things, but the intention is that they'll still stay as well after the interlude is gone.
It's interesting you bring up the mid game, because it was something I think.
So all of these bosses and stuff is very cool. I wish there was a deterministic way of fighting them, rather than you just have to search around, right? Like, I'm okay with them appearing on the map. That's really cool. Maybe there could be an item that dropped that forced them out in the open, right? Like, I think that would be... If they want to have the exploration map, that's cool. But if we could have a little bit of a middle ground, a little bit of a compromise, and have you can like waystones that can force a stronghold, that can force a maelstrom, that can force, right? So we don't have to find them, and then just make it a bit rare, but still make it an option. Make it something we can find, something we can buy if we want to, right? Like.
Previous interview with Talk that you mentioned, like the mid-game golf. How big of a golf do you feel is actually there, and how large of a portion do you think is added into that?
I would say mostly what is missing there is actually a sense of direction. I think when we're talking to a lot of players, they're like, I get to maps and I don't really, I lost my goals. I've lost my sense of direction of where to go. And so honestly, one thing that we would love to add, I would in particular have been very, very keen for, and we'll get to it certainly later, not sure exactly when, is adding a lot more storylines built into each of these. Like, I would even love for Breach to have a storyline, Ritual to have a storyline, all of these in endgame, where it's like you do this, I mean, just random example, we were like, okay, you've got currently the Realm Gate. I wanted the Realm Gate to be a place you actually initially go to, and it turns out it was Doriani experimenting with interdimensional and revealed the breach and unleashed the breach on the world, and turns out it was his fault the whole time. All in his attempt to travel to these alternate, dimensions or whatever, and then you go from there and it's like, oh, well, now you redeem that by defeating the Breach demons, you learn about Breach, you've now got the Realm Gate, and then, there's another objective later and later and later. But effectively having those, like, core quest lines throughout the end game, giving people a sense of direction and rewards and leading them to fighting all the bosses, because that's another thing I really like about what a lot of the bosses in endgame at PoE 1 have done. There's the quest versions where you get to them, you do them, they're a bit easier, you learn that whole narrative, and then you're now in farm mode, which is the hard mode, and getting more of that going on, as opposed to right now, there's, as I said, it's like, okay, there's breaches, you're farming splinters, and then way over here, there's the domain.
I think part of the reason for that is that in PoE 1, because all those things, mechanics came from the history of being a league, and because when we develop a league, we have a storyline and stuff going on, it kind of meant that there was more to it at the point where it was turned into a more in-game mechanic. And so by nature of the fact that these PoE 2 ones were kind of made for endgame without having that kind of storyline element of it, it kind of meant they missed out on that. So it's definitely a hole that we need to fill, of like making sure that all that stuff's back in there. But that's kind of one of the things with going with the new league that we're making, where because it is being made like as a proper actual league all the way through, there's like storyline stuff going on, there's like different areas, there's like more boss things going on, there's like more mechanics. Like I think that one, when it does turn into an endgame only thing later on, we'll definitely not have that problem. And then ideally, when we do that, we can also fix some of the stuff with the other ones. Because I would definitely say that the League in Zero Zero is much better at this.
So how did you settle on the League mechanic you did, Abyss? Why Abyss?
I mean, the easy answer there is actually, it might seem underwhelming, is simply because it was easy artistically. We are working on a campaign at the same time, and so we had to pick something what can we reuse, what can we do more on the materials and texture sides of things, as opposed to fully reanimating monsters from scratch and all of that. So there are stuff that's new, but I mean, Abyss comes with 30 to 35 monsters, give or take, which for a league, given PoE 1 historically, obviously there are some that have more and others that have, barely come with 10 sometimes. It's got 4 new boss fights.
There's like multiple areas.
An NPC, if you'd call it that, just to be ominous.
The weird, creepy guy.
It's got narrative. It's got lore. It's got multiple areas, like several. It's got like your kind of hub. It's got a area you're finding occasionally, more reflective of the abyssal depths kind of thing. So every so often you're finding that. It's got yet another more in-game area and all that. So it's like, it's way more built, but when you actually look at it, and you wouldn't know, lots and lots of material, reskin, kit bashing, reuse and all that, and it was just easy for us to go, okay, while we're working on this campaign, which gets lots of new art, what's something we can do on the side that isn't going to tax our artists, but we can more rely on our game designers and more materials and texture side.
And mechanically, it's also a lot better than I think the original league that we were basing on as well, because like we don't no longer have the backtracking issues. It's just kind of a lot better there. So I think it's also going to be mechanically better as well. Plus, like, and the thing that I love as well is that we're getting a lot more of those overlapping axes of things that can happen. So you've got the situation where it interacts with the wisps or interacts with exiles. Like the exile one's really cool, where like exile dies and turns the Lichborn exile near it and that kind of thing. Like that stuff's really, really cool.
Yeah. So to elaborate on that, it is the if you were to have a exile near monsters near abysses are now affected by those abysses, and to get to that, well, they're open by default. They don't if you're not following a crack with a pit for crack to pit, so they're open. So your goal, which makes more sense, I would say, is to close it to stop monsters getting out, as opposed to, you open it and then you're now responsible for closing the thing you just opened, and you kind of feel like both the villain and the hero, I guess. Now, it kind of makes sense either way, but either way, if an exile spawns near it, it's being affected by it too. And if you then kill that exile, it gets immediately revived, much like most of the monsters, and the whole thing of Abyss is all this undead bringing everything. Like, its core theme is necromancy and bringing undead back to life constantly. And so, yes, the exile will be reborn as a Lichborn, as we've called it, and their name gets modified, and their entire armor set gets changed, and they now are completely visually different, and they get a bunch of what we're calling abyssal modifiers, so they're just harder and more rewarding. and they drop or can drop a specific unique item that was made specifically for that. And so even though this is a very rare thing that will occur, and you can't like kite over to it, obviously not, that's abusive, right, and would create some what we call degenerate gameplay. You just wait for the Exile to spawn near it, you kill it, you get lucky, and you get an option at custom rewards that is only seen in that, and that's like just one of the many interactions that this has with some of the existing content. Now, it doesn't interact with everything, but it interacts with a set, hand-picked set of things that I would say makes sense. For example, Expedition. If an Expedition is close enough to an Abyss, and you were to put down the bombs like normal for the Expedition, well, the Abyss is underground down there, and so the abyssal monsters also come out next to those expedition sites, and like that's just that one's less obviously of a cool full custom reward and all of that, but it's still an extra thing that you get to happen, and it's kind of cool.
So you mentioned abyssal modifiers. Can we hear more about that?
It's going to be interesting.
When a monster is near an abyss, it is obviously like, you know, so you have your abyss, a monster spawns near it. Cool. When that monster is killed next to the abyss, their soul kind of travels down into the abyss, and then a monster spawns. Effectively, an underground undead absorbs that soul and then emerges out of either the crack or the pit. And the idea of it taking its soul is...
Did he say something about you can't drag them over there? Because that sounds like you can just drag them over there, right?
What we call degenerate gameplay.
Yeah,
you just wait for the Exile to completely visually different, and they get a bunch of what we're calling abyssal modifiers, so they're just harder and more rewarding. And they drop or can drop a specific unique item that was made specifically for that. And so even though this is a very rare thing that will occur, and you can't like kite over to it, obviously not, that's abusive, right, and would create some what we call degenerate gameplay. You just wait for the Exile to spawn near it, you kill it, you get it, and their name gets modified, and their entire armor set gets changed, and they now are completely visually different, and they get a bunch of what we're calling abyssal modifiers, so they're just harder and more rewarding. And they drop or can drop a specific unique item that was made specifically for that. And so even though this is a very rare thing that will occur, and you can't like kite over to it, obviously not, it's abusive, right, and would create some what we call degenerate gameplay. You just wait for the Exile to spawn near it, you kill it, you get lucky, and you get an option at custom rewards that is only seen in that, and that's like just one of the many interactions that this has with some of the existing content. Now, it doesn't interact with everything, but it interacts with a set, hand-picked set of things that I would say makes sense. For example, Expedition. If an Expedition is close enough to an Abyss, and you were to put down the bombs like normal for the Expedition, well, the Abyss is underground down there, and so the abyssal monsters also come out next to those expedition sites, and like that's just that one's less obviously of a cool full custom reward and all of that, but it's still an extra thing that you get to happen, and it's kind of cool.
So you mentioned abyssal modifiers. Can we hear more about that?
When a monster is near an abyss, it is obviously like, you know, so you have your abyss, a monster spawns near it. When that monster is killed next to the abyss, their soul kind of travels down into the abyss, and then a monster spawns. Effectively, an underground undead absorbs that soul and then emerges out of either the crack or the pit. And the idea of it taking its soul is taking its power, its modifiers. So if you kill a magic pack or a rare monster, then magic and rare monsters come out with the same modifiers. They've like taken their mods from them. And what happens is there is a chance, it goes up over the game, for those modifiers to be, I would say, upgraded to abyssal variants. So putting it simply, you have like mana donut, you have like abyssal donut, and it works differently. The name is not correct, but
I was liking abyssal donut.
Yeah, but it's effectively no longer blue mana draining. It's like this green necromantic, and it does something else, and it's harder and more difficult, but also more rewarding. And so yeah, you're killing a rare next to it, and then the monster that comes up can have one or many of its mods replaced by abyssal variants that are harder, or none, of course. Sometimes it's none, sometimes it's more, so that's like heaps of that random axis of both difficulty and reward. And you can imagine later, once it's core, hopefully, you get things on the Atlas tree that allow you to spec into having more of it and all of that kind of stuff. You know, you can kind of see how that, similar to how PoE1 with leagues go core, you get that investment. But the other thing they do is like the Lich or the Abyssal were kind of separated into a number of factions. So there's like the Black-Blooded, the Well, the Pit, there's like a bunch, and the Lightless and stuff like that. And they each had their corresponding Liches from PoE1. And those liches, they were defeated, but we'll see what happened to those. You'll have to find out. But ultimately, those monsters kind of belong to each of these. So when you go into an area, you're getting one of those factions of monsters.
Okay.
And each of those factions, as we call them, I mean, they're just a category, effectively, come with a set of, like, lich modifiers or faction modifiers, whatever you want to call it. So
that's cool.
not only can a regular mod be upgraded to an abyssal mod, an abyssal mod can then roll again to be upgraded to one of these more special modifiers. So, like, an example is we're playing on, so Kurgil is one of the liches from PoE 1, the one you encounter in Delve. He has a mechanic where when you defeat him, he gets, like, reborn with chaos, so all his green converts to chaos, into purple. And he's got, like, a second phase. So we're doing things where, like, one of his modifiers that is associated to his faction is that mod, now they can upgrade to that, and it's called, like, Kurgil's Final Gasp. And so when you get the monster to low life, it can, like, be reborn with purple powers instead of the green powers, and doing a bunch of chaos damage, and again, even more rewards. So you kind of got this, like, multiple layers of modifiers going on here, where they can get either none or up to some number of abyssal modifiers, and then up to one or multiple faction modifiers, abyssal faction modifiers, lich modifiers maybe. You know, we need to give them a proper name yet. And each of those, as they get harder and harder, you get more and more difficulty, more and more rewards. So kind of a lot going on there just within this, like, little mod system.
You know, in your answer, something I noticed is there's a lot of cognition and making sure it makes sense. Like, if this would happen, this other thing would happen. How important is it to you that, you know, the narrative is logical?
I don't know if it has to be logical. It just, like, there's always detail here where, like, a player doesn't need to care about the PoE 1 lich.
Sure.
They don't need to know who Kurgil is. None of that is relevant to them at this point.
You have this thing where ideas about theme can inspire mechanics, and it's like you actually get the best mechanics out of that, I would say. So it's like it's really good for us to think about this stuff, because by thinking about it, we design stuff we wouldn't have otherwise designed. And so that's why I think that there's a lot of that kind of goes on. And so, like, when you're pitching it to someone also, like, it really helps with an understanding. Like, if you just tell someone, oh, you know, like, there's some, like, when you do this, it adds, like, you know, 23% damage. Obviously, that's not exciting anyone, right? So, like, it's really about the, like, what is the story behind the reason they have plus 23% damage. And that's kind of like the way that you actually make it exciting, I guess.
It helps players fulfill fantasies, and I think that is a very important thing. Like, you are playing a fantasy game, you are playing a role-playing game, and there are other people playing a spreadsheet, and there's everything in between. And there are people playing both, and we want to make sure that it's important for everyone. So if everything's all just numbers and damage, that appeals to some people, but a lot of people want to fulfill this fantasy, embrace the world, understand the world, and so creating all of these links, as opposed to just it's a modifier and it does some chaos damage, creating that link mechanically and thematically, and which the thematically then inspires the mechanically and vice versa, and it allows us to create new characters, new villains, new heroes, new everything in the future and all of that by just extrapolating all this. Like, it's all one big cohesive thing. But yeah, by doing that, it creates just this, you know, an awesome package, and people can take it as much as they want. They can absorb, they can just be like, it's just the purple thing, or it's just the chaos damage thing, or it's Kurgil's thing, or it's, you know, and then the people in PoE 1 can be like, oh, that's cool, it links to that lich, or maybe most of them will never even know, and that's all fine. All of this is fine, the entire spectrum of, you know, mechanical through to full immersion and everything on that, and 100% fine. So I would say it's more, you don't need to know necessarily anything, as long as the mechanic looked like it makes sense and ultimately you're having fun. And obviously the balance and the rewards, which I would say is part of having fun.
Speaking of the rewards, one of the rewards looks quite strong. You have sort of almost like an unveiling. You get to pick one of three different stat lines there. So how did you come to the conclusion that this is the reward you wanted tied to Abyss?
Well, one of the things that we really were worried about was missing is a kind of mid crafting. Like, there's kind of like there's some options for like really high end crafting, and then there's quite a lot of like low end crafting type things that people would use like as they're leveling and so on. But it was kind of that mid.
There's not really any crafting in PoE 2. I'm sorry, it's just gambling.
Option, and so I think veiled, like that sort of veiled type system, does work pretty well for that. Yeah. And like, you know, there's also just a lot of mechanics that we do want to eventually do, that we've done in PoE 1 before, that, you know, we want to get to. It's just a question of introducing them in the right place, making sure they sort of fit into the PoE 2 crafting systems. So I mean, you know, like a lot of people will kind of say, oh, you know, PoE 1 has like, you know, better crafting than PoE 2 has. This kind of stuff often comes up. I do think that a lot of that is just literally we haven't had time to kind of get all of that stuff in. So yeah, veiled mods
like,
are just.
Obviously, PoE 1 has better crafting than PoE 2. It has like 15 years of leagues, yeah? Obviously. It's just PoE 2 has nothing deterministic, or had. They're adding the they're gonna have essences that are now a bit more useful and a bit more deterministic, and you're gonna have a better chance at rolling rare good modifiers. So I think that's gonna be better. I would still like to see the Delver Harvest way, where you can like target something. I would like to see scours, but they've said they don't want them, so it's not happening. But like alterations at least, so you can roll a magic so that the magic gets the two things you want, and then upgrade it with, say, an essence or whatever, right? Like, I would like that at least.
One of those things that I think feels that real good mid-tier role that we can do.
But I mean, it goes further than that as well. It's about the mid-game crafting, so it's that you've got your more RNG-based transmutation through to Exalt, etc., that you're doing. And then you've got the very top end where the most determinism gets involved, but the most costly, gets very expensive. And that will still, you know, each of these systems will get iterated on. I mean, we are iterating on even the initial part of it, which maybe we can talk about after. But that mid bit where there's a little bit of determinism and decent power and a little bit of control, but it's nothing like super outrageous.
The cost's not too high.
Is exactly where we want to aim for a few more. So we're even pitching and adjusting essences to fit in that role better as well. So ideally, it's that, yeah, you're doing your whole transmute, exalt, etc., and then over here you've got your like essences, you've got your now abyssal modifiers, and then at the top you've got all kinds of other more specific things.
Well, I mean, now what you've got, of course, is the higher tier exalts and stuff like that as well, which will kind of be more of an in-game thing. Which, once again, you're trading cost for determinism. You know, like those exalts are going to be very rare, but then on the other hand, you're going to make sure that you're getting high tier mods. So the way they work effectively is they just guarantee that the mod is above level X, but they're relatively, you know, like I can't remember what the actual number is. It'll be like, but they're high, right? Like for exalts, I think it was like above level, like it was like 50 something like that. I think. Something along those lines. Yeah, I can't remember the exact number, but
it's effectively you're going to get your T1 to T3 modifier bracket. And
right,
like
exactly.
That, nothing lower, nothing worse than that.
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
So that's the kind of thing that we also sort of felt like, filling that just like not quite at the very top, but just before the top kind of area as part of the crafting system as well. And so ideally, after we're done here, it's like there are crafting options all the way from the sort of very beginning, the most random to the most deterministic, kind of all the way through, like with a nice sort of bridge going from one end to the other.
So you're talking about the new currencies, and you say they're going to be rare. How rare are you trying to get these to be?
So that's going to depend on what type. So if you're talking transmutes, they won't be that rare, right? Like it's actually pretty fine to just let someone get a T1 mod on a magic item guaranteed. That's effectively the same as a high-level T5 magic, like on the ground T5 magic that you would that you would get. So that one won't be too bad. For the exalts, though, those are going to be pretty damn rare. Like I think that they might be a bit rarer than divines. You know, like you know, fairly up there. But it's going to kind of depend. We actually do need to crunch some numbers and work out like, well, how valuable actually is this? Like, where do we need to actually pitch this at? We did like a kind of initial pass of getting it sort of somewhere, but that's more by eye. So now we're going to have to go and like run the simulations, like look at the things to sort of actually see what's going on there. But I definitely, you know, don't expect to be getting the highest tier exalts very often. Like those are going to be, you know, pretty rare.
How about the essences? Are you trying to get those to do that mid-game crafting
so
you're
the
talking
thing,
about? Or?
If they balance them around somewhere around a divine drop, I think that's okay. Divines drop, maybe if you're not juicing, it might not be super great. But divines drop. God damn it! I dropped something. Divines drop reasonably frequently. If they make them much more rare than divines, then you're just not gonna you're not gonna have them as an SSF player, and I think that's bad. And it's also one of those things, right, where yeah, sure, they are really powerful because you are guaranteed a high tier mod, but you're not guaranteed the mod you want, right? Like if we just talking about a weapon and I want physical damage, there's still fire, lightning, what's it called? Frost and chaos as well of the flat types, right? And I want Fizz. There's still like, is there hybrid? What's it called? There's hybrid Fizz and there's percent fish, right? And I want those, right? But can't you get like, I mean, depending on the weapons, obviously. But yeah, I mean, the elemental flat elementals is just like, yeah, you can use your perfect exalt and you can get tier 1 fire. And it's ass. I mean, it's not ass, but it's not good either, right? And to say, like, same for the suffixes, right? Maybe I want attack speed, crit, chance, and multi, right? Maybe I want that. But there's like, oh, maybe there isn't in PoE 2. But there's like stun duration, right? There's accuracy. There's is there percent accuracy and flat accuracy? Is there, I don't know if there's LE pen. Like, you get the point, right? There's plenty of different shit that I don't want. And the same can be said for every single piece of armor, right? Like, if I want life and fucking armors and resistances, well, there's stun threshold, right? There's going to be the deflect percentage things, or the armor to elemental things, right? Like, there's plenty of things that makes it so it's not just you use it and you get what you want. So making it rare shouldn't really be that big a deal, because if you want to make a perfect item, you need one perfect transmute, you need one perfect alteration. Are there a regal? You need either one perfect regal or one really good essence, right? And then you need, what, 3 perfect exalts to make one item. And you are not guaranteed to get anything. So I think keeping them at a rate where you should reasonably be able to get like a couple, right? Like every play session, right? Like maybe you get 2 or something. I think that would be like, get a couple every play session if you just play moderately efficiently. I think that would be good. Like, tying it to something that if you're just doing naked 6 mod, if you're just doing 6 mod Waystones tier 15s with some combination of mechanics on there, you should likely be getting 1 in what will reasonably be a play session, right? Like, something like that would be good, I think. But they have a tendency to make it omega fucking rare because trade.
So the thing that we noticed with the essences is I was saying to myself, why do I never use an essence myself? Like, why am I just not using them? I get them in the early game and I just don't end up using them. We had to do something about that. And there's always been this thing as well with the early game of not... like, people feel like they don't get enough regals, which I do agree with, but we couldn't really necessarily give out too many more of those without affecting the end game too much. So the nice thing with the essences now is they come with a specific mod, and that's the mod you can see, and because there is tearing of essences, it means that the in the earlier game, effectively every essence you get is now a regal, which means that the regal drop rate is effectively increased because you've got that effect of upgrading to a rare, but you've also got a specific mod, and it's like not too powerful at the end game, so you're really encouraged to use it early as well. Like, there's no point saving these essences till later because then the mods won't really be valuable either. So I think it really does do that kind of like earlier game kind of like you know, like it's valuable there, it makes sense there, you're getting the feeling of upgrading to rares more often. Like, I think it does a lot to sort of help that that part of the game.
Now, in terms of later game, we have basically superior quality coming to the game and the rarer extra sockets. So why decide to bring superior back, and in particular the extra sockets?
Well, we wanted to just make sure that there's enough chase things that are interesting at the really, really late game, right? Like, there are some people who would argue that the game begins at, like 79 map tier, you know what I mean? Like, like level 79 of mapping. And so for those people, you really need somewhere to go in terms of like making sure the itemization is continuing, there's still a chase, so you can do that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it really just comes to that. What could we do? There was definitely a little bit of skepticism of like, is it really okay to have more sockets and that kind of stuff? But I think it'll be fine. Like, I don't know if you've got any opinion on that.
No, I think it is fine. I mean,
I think they're going to be really frustrating. You got to find it first, and then you have one shot at crafting it, because it's all RNG and there's no scouring. You can't just fucking. You have one shot, unless you want to spam chaos on it, I guess.
We added a lot more socketable since. We're adding even more.
Yeah,
like again, another thing with Abyss, we're adding there's 4, I guess you could call them unique socketables, so you can only have one of them equipped, and you have to pick which one you want. And like, so we're even ascending that. I guess you could think of it like the unique jewels, where they have a limit to one kind of thing. So you're getting gear socketables that have a bit of that going on. But yeah, I mean, we're only going to continue to add more. There'll be just more pressure there, more interesting crafting, and so like, obviously when you get to endgame, you get a lot of new socketables that you haven't seen before. You start to use those, and now you're like, okay, how do I take my gear further? Okay, I want either the quality or the extra quality or the extra socket. Depending on the slot, you might have different answers.
Corrupting those is going to be a bit of a thing. To get another socket is going to be a bit of a thing.
Those, and just more and more of those layers. It is ultimately adding power, but it's also adding a lot more interest to the drops, a lot more excitement to the drops.
And it really just, it will have the feeling of expanding what can be crafted in the game, which I think is good, because like PoE 2's crafting is very additive for the most part, so that means that you need enough things to add, that you can add, to sort of get that same feeling of being able to craft an item from scratch, in order to kind of, like, if we're ever going to make it get to the feeling where it feels as open as PoE 1, but without falling into some of the traps that you have in PoE 1, I do think that you need to have enough of those additive layers that you can actually do some interesting stuff with it.
So comparing to PoE 1, how have you had to adjust the quantity of these drops you're going to be receiving?
The problem is, the more additive layers you put on, with all of them being RNG, the less likely you're going to be at having a good item, right? Let's say you manage to find the weapon you want with the extra socket, right? Then you fucking manage to RNGesus your way to a perfect version of it with, like, yeah, you got the modifiers you wanted and tier 1, right? Got all the modifiers you wanted, tier 1. Full RNGesus took the wheel, right? Like, perfect transmute, perfect augmentation, perfect regal, perfect triple perfect Exile, or however you did it, right? Maybe a veiled, throw it in there, come out with the thing you want. Whichever way, you RNG'd your ass into the perfect item, right? Because none of it is deterministic, and you can't re-roll it. You have one shot, unless you want to risk it for the biscuit with a chaos or orb, right? Like, you can do that, obviously, but you can't start over. And you managed to get there. So now you have your weapon, you got all the mods you want on it, and you got an extra fucking extra hole, extra socket, right? Are you really gonna corrupt that? Are you really gonna sanctify it? I don't think I am. What I think I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna go and look for the next unicorn. There's a second unicorn. Whenever I then get the second unicorn, which should be impossible, right? Because of the RNGs, then I'll try it. Because corrupting could brick it, right? Could completely ruin your item. And sanctifying it could make it 80% less good. So, like, it's just RNG on RNG on RNG on RNG. And if you keep adding these things, then getting that good item, it isn't a, oh, it's hard to get the good item. Obviously, it's expensive to get the good item. No, it becomes statistically impossible. Or unlikely, at least. Like, completely unlikely to the point of impossible, right? Whereas in PoE 1, sorry, well, you can get a decent amount of the way with determinism, right? You got your you got your fractures, so that's an easy way, right? You got your delve crafts. Now, I'm not really sure because there are some things you can't do with a fracture, and I'm not sure if delve is one of the things. I can't really remember what it is. But you can also re-roll, right? You can scour it and go again. It's not like you have your delve item and then you put it's a magic fracture. It has one mod. Now you augment it, and that augment is ass. Well, you're stuck. No, you can what's it called? You can alteration orbit, or you can scour it and go again, right? Okay, now you got 2 mods that are correct. Then you can regal it. Oh, you got the wrong one. Well, do you want that one? No, you can reroll with essences, right? So you're guaranteed a good mod that you want. You have the fractured one, so you're guaranteed 2 mods that are good. And then you roll until you get maybe 2 more that are good, right? And then you have a crafted option. It's not great. It's not the best, right? But it'll still get you a deterministic, good mod. Realistically, you can moderately easily get a good 5 stat in PoE 1. There's a bit of grinding, right? But you don't have to go out, find a new item, then get lucky 5 times in a row, right? You have to find the item once. You can determine 2 things, basically, if you find the fracture. If you don't find the fracture, you can fracture things yourself, right? You can get like 2 or 3 good mods on there, hit a fracture. Yeah, sure. If you fuck that up, then you gotta go again, right? But there are ways of more realistically determining what outcome you want, at least for a few mods. Whereas in PoE 2, it's just up in the air. Toss them up, they land where they may.
Because, for instance, in PoE 1, you have things like splitting your scour orbs, for instance. So when you get a base item, the base item is quite important, but you have opportunity to have it maxed out. In PoE 2, let's say you miss the slams, the item doesn't complete. Mm-hmm. Are you having more quantity of these rarer types of items in PoE 2?
Well, I think that the solution to this problem is so if you're talking base types, is that kind of
the bases.
So I actually agree that this is a little bit of a problem, and we're actually starting to think about whether or not some of the higher item tiers, which is sort of an internal term for how our item drop system works, some of those should start to reintroduce white items, but sort of guaranteeing that they're high tier ones as well. Like I think that there might be a slight lack of white items in the higher tiers, but the other thing as well is that the other way we're solving that problem is by effectively adding more determinism at a cost. Right? Because if you know that that your Exalt Slam is going to at least guarantee a mod above a certain level, like the chance that you're going to get something that's actually good is much higher. So that means that you're not going to need to burn through as many white items. So I think that's kind of another way to sort of approach fixing that too. Reducing determinism as you get to the...
It is absolutely going to mean that you're much more likely to get something good. That is absolutely true. Does Craft of Exile have a PoE 2 module? It does. So, mace. Right? So even if I eliminate, I want fists, right? Can I just pick this and then make it smaller? Right. I want fists, I want hybrid fists, and I want flat fists, right? Great, these are what I want. So, obviously, if I use a perfect Exalt, right? let's say I get lucky. I use the alteration, and I use the augmentation. I guess I want melee skills. And then we'll go with, this might be wrong. Whatever. This is what we're doing, right? I want this, right? I hit Fizz and attack speed as a magic item. Now, I don't know what I can do with essences. It doesn't matter. Let's just say, just for the sake of argument, that I hit Fizz and Fizz damage accuracy with attack speed, right? Now I'm using an Exalt. It's going to add a prefix. I am removing all the shit ones, right? So that's great. But it's still a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1 in 6. Right? It's a 1 in 6 for me to get the one I want. So, not forgetting that on the first one, on the first alteration, or sorry, on the first transmutation, let's just assume if it's a, we have to hit a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So a 3 and 8 to get something good, right? So that's almost 50%, but not quite. So half, let's just say half the time, you're going to get something you want. On the suffix sides, it's even worse, right? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, right? So it's a 3 and 14. Let's say 4 and 14 because critical damage bonus is really good as well, right? So let's say 4 and 14. So that is less than a third, right? It's just between a third and a quarter, right? Like 1 and 3, 1 and 4. So it's like, whatever, 2 and 7. Something like that, yeah? Well, it might actually be 2 and 7. It's exactly 2 and 7. So, and then the next time I have to hit the Regal, it's either a 1, like a 2 and 7, 2 and 6 or whatever. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 2 and 7 or a freaking 3 and 13, right? Now, hitting those odds back to back to back to back, it's not really gonna be that great. Like, these are your options: Chaos Orb, Exalt Orb, Alchemy, Augmentation, Transmutation, Regal. Right? Like, yeah, you can annul. You can try that. There's also the chaos you can try, obviously. I guess there'll be perfect chaos as well, right? The question is what's going to be cheap, but the perfect chaos is going to be cheaper than the perfect exalt for sure, right? But like, then you have to still, let's say you get one bad mod, then it's a 1 in 3 to hit the mod you want, and then it's again the whatever 2 and 7 or fucking 3 and 13. Like, not to mention, it's not guaranteed tier 1, right? It's up to tier 3, as far as I heard, right? So, like, the difference here from 135 to 154 is 25% fizz damage. That's a lot. Like, hitting the fucking tier 1 every time, it's gonna be, yeah. And when you then can't reroll, it's kind of ass.
The higher tiers of crafting is one of those things that will mean more people actually want to engage with it too. So yeah, I think you kind of end up helping on a few fronts by doing that kind of system.
So let's change gears for a moment here and let's talk about the support gem change. Mm-hmm. You guys are going to many tiers of support gems. What was the thought process there?
Well, so we definitely had, okay, so from the moment that we did the whole limit 1 support gem per character thing, we knew that there was going to be some repercussions of that. But the thing that we didn't want is just you to put like every single skill is just the same set of supports, right? That was the issue that we had with that, and the reason why we kind of couldn't have it so that it was any other way. So we were really racking our brains, like, how can we, like, at the same time, you've got an issue where it's like, okay, if you're going to play like a poison build or something like that, you kind of need that poison stacking support on multiple skills in order, like, if you're going to have combos with multiple skills being involved, you do need to have it so that you can kind of support some of those things in some of the same ways in certain cases, right? So we're kind of like, okay, like, one thing we were thinking about is, do we have it so that you can have like different limits on every support? Like, there was stuff like that we were kind of thinking about, but it just didn't feel right and like kind of wasn't cool. And then we came to the idea of, okay, what if there were multiple levels for each support, but there aren't the same number of levels for each one, so we can effectively control the limit of how many times you can get this mechanic by saying like how many levels of that support exist. But at the same time, you're also going to get the nice feeling of, even if you do use one of them, you're upgrading the one that you've got, like you're getting the higher tiers, you know, like you kind of get that feeling of advancement through the game as well. So that kind of solved two birds with one stone, I would say, especially because with the only 3 tiers of supports that we have in PoE2 right now, there actually was kind of this like mid-game, like by mid-game I mean middle of campaign, kind of like level 40-ish like dip in like the feeling of advancement. Like, you didn't have that like the advancement feeling like around level 40-ish, I would say, like for going towards maps. Like, there's just kind of a big gulf there. And so we're also going some of the way to kind of improving that feeling as well, that there's more there that's actually going to advance your character. So it's kind of trying to solve like all of these problems at the same time. But I would say the new support system really does help with that. But the other nice thing it gave us an opportunity to do is I'm not sure what name we're going to finally go with, but we're currently calling them lineage supports. Like these supports that you have that are drop only, they're kind of treated like uniques. They kind of come from specific bosses in some cases. They're kind of like, they drop like uniques in the way that they're, you know, some of them are rarer than others and that kind of stuff.
And those aren't uncuts, by the way.
Those aren't uncuts. So they're drop only, right? Yeah. So effectively, you know, if you want a specific one, like you might have to farm a specific boss. You might have to, trade for it in some cases, things like that. You know, relatively rare, that kind of stuff. Having those as kind of like pinnacle power that you can use to complete your character by sort of adding like a few extra things was also like a really attractive thing to be able to do with this as well. So I just think there wasn't enough to the support gem game before, and so adding the stuff I think should improve that a lot.
You say pinnacle power. How much power is pinnacle power? How much stronger are these gems?
That I guess probably remains to be seen. Like at the time of this interview, we're still like relatively early in like the actual like part where we like measure the like where that goes.
A way to think of it is similar to like unique items. You're going to have ones that are more build enabling, build changing, and you're going to have all the way through to the ones that are just like spike power. I
mean, some of them can be incredibly rare, like uniques are, and they're definitely good. Like that will be a thing that you definitely have, like the real chase ones, and some of them will be more common. You can just you can build around it, but it's kind of an end, towards the end of end game. Sorry, the beginning of what some people would say is the start of endgame, which is 79 tier sort of.
So they're not always just linear upgrades to the previous tier.
No. They'll often have stats.
They'll be pretty more out there. Yeah. You know, it'll be something called Lionize something, and it's like, you know, the lineage being Lionize lineage, and it's themed around something either accuracy or like long distance and more around that, as opposed to, and sure, you might see it as a, something in the sequence to one of the existing accuracy or like, you know, far shot like ones, but I can't remember the names of them, which is a different problem altogether. So you might see it as the next in line for that, but I mean, you can also just use both in most cases, depending on what they give. So we have a new way to restrict how they are used together in some cases, because what is allowed us to do is to make sure so that you can't just go hit 5 different multi-prod supports. Because you, for example, will have multiple projectiles tier 4, and you obviously can't use that with multiple projectiles 3 on the same skill, but you can use those on different skills. So that's great. So now your lightning arrow and your lightning rod, for example, one of the most obvious ranger cases, both can get additional projectiles. Perfect. But then you have, the spiral volley support. Well, what does that do? It's like, well, it fires some higher number of projectiles in a volley around, like, you know, like the spiral volley skill currently offered to ranger.
Allowing that to stack with multiple projectiles would not be great. So effectively what we can do is put them in the same category together, so one skill can't both have spiral volley and multiple projectiles, and that way we can kind of allow to sort of restrict that way. So that's kind of how we can control a few cases.
Wait, can you only have one level 5 greater projectiles? So they're not opening up so you can use the support gems as much as you want? Are they opening it up so you can use multiple of the same ones if you use downgraded ones? Is that what I'm hearing? That's what it sounds like. That sounds ass. and convoluted for no reason. I thought Jonathan said that they reached a point where this restriction was not necessary because you had skills and abilities serving vastly different functions, so fundamentally you wouldn't want the same supports on them, so the restriction was no longer needed.
We've got a couple of
I guess we're going to have
that might
to
be in
see.
the same category, but we're generally trying to be like pretty open with what we allow. But yeah, there's the nice thing is like previously, if we were like, okay, we want to add a new way to like multiply projectiles, we would have to like look at it and be like, what could it add to, but with all these other things?
Sure.
Again, kind of that might actually prevent adding something like that. Now with the category system, we can say, okay, here's a new way to do this thing. We can lock it out with a few other things so that you don't have to worry about that stacking case. And we've got a little more control over that. So yeah, it's kind of a nice balance.
When we do the lineage one, if we were to say, not that it is, that there's a lionized one that's called Block Out the Sun, and it's like got a Roman archer theming going on. We at least now know it can't just stack additively or multiplicatively with Spiral Volley and do some outrageously thing that's going to crash all the servers. So we actually get to open up our ceiling of what each support now can do as well.
And I actually think this is going to be one of the things that's going to improve build diversity the most in 030. Like, I think this is probably...
I don't like when they put guardrails on. It's like whenever you cap scaling of something, whenever you like put guardrails up, right? Like you cap the scaling of something, you make things not work with each other, although there's no real reason they should, other than you're afraid of it going out of control. I don't like that. I really don't like that. I think that's boring. If you have a lionize project, like Block Out the Sun, which sounds like a fucking awesome idea, they should do that. Then I think it should be allowed to stack with the multiple projectiles. I think that would be cool. If you have the spiral projectile, it makes sense to stack it with multiple projectiles, so that you do the spiral, and every time you do one, instead of one projectile, you get two. Or three, or whatever, right? Like, so your spiral becomes a flower all of a sudden. That makes sense. I mean, that's cool. I don't know why you'd want to limit that.
Of all the changes, so we're making a bunch of changes to skills, obviously. But
like, the effect of this is just going to be that there's one of them that's better than the others, and the others don't get used outside of niche cases. That's what you're doing.
I actually think it's the support change that'll be the larger change, because it allows, like, there are currently a lot of combos that can't scale because you can't support enough of the stuff in the build, and being able to do that now will definitely be a thing. So it should really open up what can happen.
Did this require to do a pretty wide scale sweep of balance?
Yeah, absolutely. It still requires that. There's a lot more balance happening.
That's why it's actually a little bit hard to talk about the specifics of what they're doing, because they're probably all going to change over the next short while.
And I mean, this is going to be another balance nightmare we're just walking straight into. So no doubt there's going to be broken shit. It's going to be like a whole thing.
We might run into the same answer then, but I got to ask about the passive tree coming up in 0.3. Can we expect changes, or maybe it's announced in the video I haven't got a chance to see before this?
Yes, 100%. So currently we are looking to add 150 or so notables. Or overhauling existing ones, and they come within the clusters, so I'd expect like up to say 500 additional passive points on the tree, give or take. One of the main motivators or motivations we have here, of course, being that we want to have a bit more fantasy fulfillment going on. So instead of, again, just like, you know, X% more damage, and we talked about a lot of this with the Abyss stuff, but it's more... Okay, I want to become a huntress that embraces, you know, there's the whole Asmerian thing of each Asmerian is picked by a certain spirit. So you're picked by the Great Bear, and you're picked by the Winter Owl, and they have their kind of affinity to that. And so I was like, well, let's add 10 notables in the Ranger Huntress section that are each representing one of these different things. It's just like, what does it mean to become to embrace a huntress that is embraced by and embraces the Great Bear? I'm like, okay, well, so now it's like, I've got a little bit of bear going on. What does that mean? And so obviously you get a little bit of life and a little bit of these other things.
I got a bit of bear going
that are
on.
like, okay, a bit more bear aligned, or you're durable, or there's regen and that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, the owl has like mobility, but also has cold damage. And so you're getting these kind of hybridizations of stats that normally would be very separate, while also going, okay, I want my character to fulfill this kind of, I want to build it this way, this way, this way, by embracing these kind of cultural and immersive things. Now, you can just look at it and go, here's a notable that gives me cold damage and movement speed. Again, you don't have to care about that whole owl thing or any of the sort, right? But it's more about thinking of it that way and seeing what the notables can then give, and then we go back from there and go, okay, now what do the clusters give that fulfills that even further? So what you're actually getting out of it is a lot more notables that I would say are generally pretty powerful, and they are often offensive and defensive hybrids or fulfilling more utility roles. And you could see them as a bit more niche, but I'd actually see them as quite often a bit more general and a bit more chase in that regard, and that you're getting like a pretty decent overall improvement to your character. So you'd obviously want to pair this with a lot of the existing stuff, but yeah, I mean, ultimately we're adding 20 or so of these to each section of the each class section of the tree, making sure there's a good, here's the set of witch, occult-oriented ones, sorceress ones, elemental ones, through to monk, for example. Now there's a bunch of notables, each representing a different kind of chakra. So there's like, chakra of the mind. What does that mean? Well, probably there's, all the way... everything intelligence aligned, mana regen aligned, but it could be like trigger skill, meta energy aligned, that kind of stuff. Through to the Asmerian spirit stuff in the kind of Huntress Ranger section. In the mercenary, there's all kinds of stuff. Like there's one called Spray and Pray. There's one called Run and Gun. You can imagine what they're going to do. And then there's maybe not Run and Gun. We might rename that, but that's my internal name so far. And then you've got all the warrior ones. You got a bunch of blacksmith-oriented things, giving the warriors a smith through to. And again, you can already imagine like what is a node that says you're an elite blacksmith. How are you using that blacksmithing skills to either survive or kill stuff? You can derive from there. And then you've got all the Kadui gods. Like different tribes. So you've got Kaum and Namahu, and you've got all those pairings of chieftains and gods, and what does it mean to embrace their power? So utilizing this, we're getting a lot more, everything from ailment mitigation to interesting different kinds of damage that are beyond just 13% increased damage, 15% increased damage, etc. So ideally they would act as more multipliers as well, and you're getting different things of where you want to build. But it should make... aside from also filling in the density, it also mean you're just not just like, oh, okay, now I've run out of stuff, I just got to travel way up here, and you get that like 6 levels of just like attributes. It can be I mean, that's sometimes just cool if you're going for like a keystone and stuff like that, but it should be less pressure to feel like you have to do that, especially at endgame. Generally a bit more dense, a bit more interest going on, a bit more fantasy fulfilling, and obviously more power. So yeah, that's ultimately where we're going there. There's some new keystones. There's currently a sorcerer's keystone that converts all of your fire spells to chaos visually as well, which I think is very, very cool.
That is fucking cool, yeah.
So all of a sudden now you're this like chaotic black flame mage.
Okay.
It also makes your ignite deal chaos damage, and I don't know.
That sounds kind of busted.
I guess that's just like one thing. There's another one that's currently kind of themed around auto bomber, and so what it does is it takes your invocations, and instead of deploying them all in one go, it's going to go, okay, it's going to, when you use your invocation, it's going to cast the spell once per, say, second, instead of, just a giant bomb. And the bomb is great for a single target, but all of a sudden now you think, okay, I'm going to put something big AoE on that, I'm going to build up as much energy as I can, hit the invocation, and now it's like I'm ice novering every second or something, so you just run around doing novas for a longer period of time, of which you cannot generate energy during that time, just so that you can't infinitely do it. But the point being, it like transforms your invocations from a nuke to a more sustained auto bomber playstyle. As just 2 random examples in the more sorcerer section.
Is this way of looking at the passive tree a newer philosophy, or is it something you sort of always have done?
It was originally actually done this way in Path of Exile 1. So Eric was actually a pretty big part of the passive trees, making sure the passive tree was fulfilling world building elements as well, where again it is I want to fulfill a fantasy for my character. what can I do, as opposed to I want to play a crit build. These are two different ways of thinking about it, and they can achieve the same goal. Now, they can both exist, and they should both exist, and I would say that our iteration of the Path of Exile 2 tree as of live, pre-03.
The thing is, if you do the theme stuff, right? Like, I want to be embracing the bear, right? Whatever. If you make all of these like really thematic powers and talents that do a bunch of things that obviously has an effect on your character, you can easily still have you make a crit build, right? Because you're not gonna care that you're embracing the owl or the falcon or the eagle or whatever, right? Like, you don't give a shit. You're gonna take the one that says crit damage, right? So going for the lore always, I think, is just the right thing to do, right? Like, as long as it isn't you're miring somebody in like fucking hours of storytelling that is required, right? As long as stuff like, oh, well, we're gonna name this theme or whatever, right? Or we're gonna make sure that this end game content has this theme and these characters, and we're gonna build the villain and all of that. As long as you do that, then everybody's happy, because the boss is still gonna be there for the blasters, right? Like, and they don't care that it's whatever lich guy, right? They care what he drops. But the lore guys are gonna be happy.
Is very much towards, I want to do build A, I want to do build B, I want to do build C, and there's tools for that. Now, I'm not even saying that that's 100% executed perfectly, but now it's going, okay, both of these things exist, and we're going to keep extrapolating on that. And I'd say that, the initial version of PoE2's tree didn't have that kind of fantasy fulfillment side of things, which the PoE1 tree, but that being said, of course, the PoE1 tree went through many iterations and still deserves them. It has many systems and all that. So, like, previous to the masteries in PoE1, all of those interesting stats were on a lot of the notables, and so it did get simplified down, but the masteries were there. And then in PoE2, we were like, okay, we want interesting stuff everywhere. And we didn't quite execute that. Like, well, not even quite. We just didn't execute that well enough. There is some, but there's not enough. So this is an attempt at both adding more fulfilling fantasies, adding more power, adding more density. I mean, all of that, really. It should just be ultimately more fun. And I would say nothing overly complicated. Like, we've not added keywords everywhere. It's all pretty still straightforward, just kind of a bit more, it might be a little bit like, oh, I don't know if I should take this or this, but that is the kind of interesting decision someone should be making. Where neither could be wrong, one could be wrong, one could be right, sure, but at the end of the day, it's not like all of a sudden there's like 700 new mechanics. It's reusing a lot of existing, more familiar stuff. So I don't want people to also think, oh my god, it's too complicated now, because I would say it's still keeping that nice simplicity and still has the whole mousing over nodes showing you what they do and all of that. So,
can we expect any changes to ascendancy classes as well? Has it got kind of the same overhaul that passive
I should have watched this first.
Or?
Each is being looked at, yes, 100%.
It's a little bit hard right at this exact moment to talk about how much of that's going to get in, because we certainly have a lot of plans for a lot of things, but there's like quite a lot that is still may or may not make it.
I mean, there are some things that have to change, like, for example, the Gemling Legionnaires, like, you can use two of the same support. Kind of doesn't now work the same way due to the support changes, so now it is you can use two of the same category of support on the same skill.
That sounds good.
Now, I don't know if that's going to stay all the way through to release, because like we're currently like a bit scared of it.
I'm a bit worried about that for sure.
But if all of a sudden you can use two of the multiple projectiles.
I don't know if that's going to be okay.
Yeah, so the issue being there, as I said earlier, what allows us to do the crazy stuff is that we know they can't be used together. Though. So if all of a sudden this enables that, we might have to go back on that. So there's stuff changing just as a consequence of our systems, and it's hard to say where they'll end up. But we are doing just a pass on each, looking at, for example, we redesigned I believe it's called Advanced Thaumaturgy notable on the Gemling yesterday, because it has an extremely low usage, lowest of all the notables by far on that tree, and we came up with some alternate designs for that. We've added a new notable to Witch Hunter. We've changed one of the existing notables on Witch Hunter. We've embraced more of the totem ballista thing with Tactician. Just as the 3 mercenaries one being fresh on my mind since I was talking about them yesterday. So doing a lot of that. So yeah, you expect some cooler totem notables on Tactician. You can expect we're obviously changing skills everywhere. We're changing how banners work, and thus obviously the tree changes.
I wonder if Witch Hunter is going to be really good, right? Like that's the
making
weapon
all the
swap
changes
one.
adjacent, but we're changing
now
so much stuff and so many skills that it's impossible to then have to not change the ascendancies just to fit the new mechanics and embrace those better. And so just even by consequence of that is happening. So I'd expect changes to pretty much every single class, bar a few, I'd say, be it small changes all the way through to several new nodes, all the way through to some of them getting a bit more of a bit of a grander redesign.
What is currently the least played class and why?
Ascendancy or
Ascendancy.
It kind of varies a little bit from league to league, depending. There's a little bit of SSF versus non-SSF.
Yeah, fair.
But overall, I think it's maybe Acolyte of Chiola right now.
Oh yeah, but
there's a bunch of them at the bottom that are all in the kind of 0% played kind of range.
And the fundamental issue there, I would say, is that we don't have something for chaos damage to really be that's interesting enough. Like we had a whole conversation a while ago about like why would you even want your damage to be chaos? Like there currently isn't really like a real reason.
And this is excluding the kind of dot archetype.
Because sure. The dot archetype's got a thing.
They have a reason.
Yeah. But in terms of chaos hits, it's like there isn't really a reason to do it. So we've had quite a lot of conversations about what they could be. Like there was discussion a while back of like should there be an ailment that chaos does? We dumped quite a bit of time into trying to work out what that would be with like 20 different ideas, and there's always an issue when you're dealing with something like this where it's like a damage type of like it has to be really fundamental. Like you can't do some weird sort of like thing that only affects a few builds or kind of like feels like really complicated. Like if it's like this is what chaos damage does, it has to be fundamental enough that you would think that okay, like yeah, I can see that. And chaos being the kind of like least real world analog element is kind of quite hard to design for in that regard. So I don't think we've like fully come to a conclusion on that yet, but yeah, we do need to do something about chaos damage. This is something that we will be looking at probably, I suspect, before 030 is done. We'll have an answer to that question of what can chaos damage be.
Well, speaking of Monk, a new addition that's, I suppose, like maybe half a new weapon is you have the Hollow Palm coming to the game. So why did you guys decide to add the Hollow Palm in 0.3?
We intended Hollow Palm to be in 010, and then we intended it to be in 020, and now we're intending it to be in 030. So I really hope it doesn't get cut again. But effectively, it's just, it requires so much work to actually finish, because for every single quarterstaff skill, you have to effectively remake the skill again, but with no weapon, right? So effectively, it's just a bunch more work than what it first appears, and there's so many balance considerations like random issues. It's just a very complicated thing to execute. But effectively, cool. We always wanted to have unarmed be a thing because it was a thing in PoE 1. There's like a bunch of people who want to be able to do it. So like it's just this is the way that happens. Yeah,
face breakers soon.
Yeah, exactly right. You need face breakers. It's a classic thing. We needed to have a way.
What's harder when developing that, trying to get the balance right or getting the animations?
Oh, I mean, it's just a bunch of work to make skills right. And the thing is, it's so easy to cut as well because it's one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, there's like a huge amount of work there, and we've got this other thing that's going to be important for everyone, and this is just this one thing that's only important for some builds. So yeah, I think that's why it got sacrificed a few times. But
when you don't have, again, we're still working on campaign classes.
Yeah,
all
exactly.
of this. So it's like, all right, are we willing to just go and make this full other, like effectively 10 skills here that we have to make, that are for just a keystone? Like it's often easy to say it's just a keystone. It's not the core skill tree of a different class. And so it gets chipped away at as opposed to, worked on with the utmost priority. And then eventually it gets close enough, we're like, all right, let's get it across the line and then just finish it. And so we put all our focus on it for a bit.
I think it's like that stuff's so important though, because it's part of the soul of the game.
100%.
Like you have this thing of like when you see something like that and the amount of effort that went into it, like that's when you really think, oh yeah, like these guys care about this and that sort of stuff.
And that's what I mean. If it's just a keystone, I'm not saying it's. I don't agree with that. It is easy to look at it that way, but each keystone can be huge.
But it's also to do
like
similar idea with the amount of effort that we're putting into uniques. Like we want to make sure that like we're doing better than what we've done before in terms of making sure that each unique's like really cool. So I mean that cannon foot thing is like really awesome. It's just like you've got a unique that turns your leg into a cannon, and then you can then use it to rocket jump effectively across the map. So
there's cool detail there. There's like if you're depending on which ground material you're walking on, it will tink and create a little spark if it's metal, really cool. And like so you're getting like step tinks step tink, step tink.
That's
And then
fucking
obviously
dope.
press spacebar and just flying across. It's it's quite fun doing that. But I love the new direction with the unique items being more. I mean, ultimately a way of looking.
That it's so cool, but it sounds like such a meme. Like, why would you ever use it? If it's effectively just a better dodge roll, right? Then you'd never use it, would you? It would be a leveling thing. Unless it does like giga damage or gives you a buff, or the dodge thing is just a meme that it has, but it adds something else, right? Like, if the functionality of it is to give you a longer dodge roll, then it's just a meme thing, right? Because you wouldn't give up stats for that. But if it's just, it does that because it's thematic and cool, which would be very PoE-like, but it in reality, it gives you this skill or whatever, or it lets you do XYZ, or it has this mechanic on it, and the dodge roll is just, hey, this would be fun. Then sure. But if what it does is literally just a dodge roll, then
there's ultimately each one of them is, well, a lot of them now are kind of coming with a built-in skill that's unique to that, as opposed to just like, there is room for just like, here's this more stat-driven, it changes how your build is a little bit, but I think you can do that while also, and again, this comes back to, and you're going to hear me saying this all the time, that whole fantasy fulfillment. I love asking the question of like, okay, you were a pirate, your leg got blown off, and normally you'd expect a peg leg. Well, they only had a cannon, and they chucked it there, and for some reason it's operational. So it's like, what does that look like now? And all of a sudden you can have some fun with that. But we're doing a lot more of that, so a lot more of the uniques come with skills built in. That do have interesting mechanics.
It does sound like you'll have like a cannon shot that just blasts around you, and the dodge is just kind of an added
mechanics
thing.
that synergize with other skills.
It's like, I really think
utility.
One of the issues was in 0.10. It suffered from that same issue of like, we designed these really awesome uniques, and then a bunch of them got cut for time because it's like, oh, we're putting so much effort into this one item. Like, there's always that argument. It's just really hard to kind of defeat that when you're when you're coming up to time pressure. So it's really good we're starting to finally be able to put some of those cooler things in now.
Yeah.
So speaking of time pressure, you guys recently said you changed your way of developing from locking in what's going to be in the league as opposed to when is going to be in the league. How's that going for you?
Well, we immediately launched in August later than we were initially hoping to, so we kind of broke it a little bit there, but hey, we're still in the same month we said, so I'm going to say that that's the promise kept as far as that's concerned. But look, I mean, it is such a much better way of development. I mean, we always knew this, right? Like, we knew it back when we were doing PoE 1 leagues that was important, and it was really only like getting PoE 2 shipped that ever made that break. But effectively, you're going to deliver a better experience when you look at it that way, because like the endless slips are just like not good for anyone. It's just really bad. So I think it's good. Plus, like, people can have an expectation of when things will happen. Like, you're committed to a schedule. Like, it's just overall a better, like, it's a better vibe.
Consistency is very important.
King. And it is so hard to actually have the balls to cut something you think is really important rather than delay a date. It is really, really hard to do that. And in some cases, it can kind of feel like, oh, this is so vital, we could never cut it. Like, there was at one point though, like, so I'm one of these guys who likes to kind of question every assumption when it comes to like doing this stuff. So at one point, I was like, should we cut Act 4 from 030? Like, that was an actual thing that was on the table to potentially do. And eventually we decided, no, we can't really do that. But it's like, I do think that it has to be the kind of thing you're prepared to do in order to be able to meet that kind of commitment. And, we didn't know how to do it, but like, because we realized that if we did, it wasn't going to really improve anything about the time pressure that we were facing. Like, that's as I said, I feel like that still would have been preferable to not making August if we if we'd have had to do that. So, and the funny thing is like, it's not like there is a shortage of anything, of other stuff coming in 0.3 anyway, right?
If they didn't have Act 4 and they didn't have the Druid, like, if they cut both Act 4 and the Druid, I think that would have a lot of people being like, huh? Really unhappy. Now, with the changes to this, to the passive tree, with the changes to a lot of the skills, that's enough for me still, because I've only played basically 2 characters, So I can still be excited about other ones. I do fear there are obviously some people who's made a build for each fucking class, each fucking ascendancy, basically, each league, right? But I think, especially the sorcerer changes, should be enough to get them excited for at least that. I think the Blood Mage improvement might be a little bit underestimated in terms of how much it does, because it's probably just power, but you can probably do some cool shit with that. The armor break consumption stuff, that's gonna be big, right? There's a few warrior things, there's a few mercenary things that consumes armor to do something really cool. There's gonna be stuff there. And then they changed the Deadeye skill, the lightning arrow, right? So there's a new avenue there. Maybe it's not too different. And then there's the new things they added for the warrior with the hammer you throw and the war cry. It then turns into a fucking, I don't know, volcano zone and just go slam on it and it goes. That's cool as fuck.
Tons of
you
shit
probably
in here.
use
Like
dumb shit
even probably
that.
just from this conversation, there's all sorts of detail in there that I think will make it a lot of fun.
Speaking of cuts, I know something that people are going to ask is about the Druid. So I got to ask: was the Druid originally slated for 0.3?
It was going to be in 0.30. In 0.30, it got cut.
Where is it in the development process right now?
Animation system hell is what I'll say. So effectively what it is that like getting the whole transformation stuff, it's like there's so much detail in the animation system you need to get right to be able to do it well. And it's like in every single animal form we add also adds a lot of complexity around like exactly how that's going to look and how it's going to act and like all the stuff, all the little details about that. So it's really hard. So the worst thing that you have when you're in game development is like if you have a dependency where like one guy has to work on something for like 2 months to even get to the point where you can see whether it's going to be good. Like this is a really hard thing because it means that like a bunch of other work that other people might do could be wasted if it doesn't work out. And so the Druid got into a situation where it was like, okay, like the next change we have to make here is like a huge like one person just has to work on this for ages and then we will know like what can happen. And it's like when you're in that situation and you're like looking down the barrel of like a fixed deadline, you're like, okay, maybe we can pull everything out of the bag and like get everything like sorted, or maybe we can do a bunch of development in advance where we don't know whether any of that might get cancelled, or we can just commit to like not having it in this expansion, do a bunch more work on other stuff that we know can definitely happen. And so it's like when you're looking at that trade-off, it was a really hard thing to say, okay, we're going to keep the Druid. So at some point, even though we were planning on doing that, we just said like, you know what, like none of the work we've done is going to get thrown away that we've done already, but having to change, having to commit to this now is going to hurt the other work we're going to do. So we decided to cut it in the end. And I think it was the right move for sure. Like obviously there's going to be a bunch of people disappointed by that, but I think that the amount of extra features and cool shit that 0.3 is going to have in it because we made that decision is definitely worthwhile.
So one other thing people have been asking for was movement speed, and in a way we've been getting that in 0.3. So let's talk about sprint. How'd you guys come across the idea of sprint?
Well, obviously the whole like, big areas, levels are a slog, like game pace things is on people's mind, right? This is something that we definitely knew we wanted to solve. And we didn't just even want to solve it one way. There's like various things that we're doing in terms of like just kind of a lot of minor tweaks here and there to kind of improve stuff. But we did know that we need sort of some major headline, like, look, this is a thing that is like going to go a long way to solving that kind of stuff. So at the same time, I was kind of like, I don't want to break the combat system. I don't want to have a situation where now suddenly you can just, like the combat is compromised. So we're like, okay, there needs to be some kind of cost to this that's going to kind of make sense in terms of like fitting into where the combat system is. So, and then we sort of started looking how other games solve this problem. So we sort of looked around a few of them, and then the idea of like dodge roll followed by sprint was something that a couple of other games have done, and we're like, you know what, actually that could maybe work pretty well. The other cost that it has is that while you're sprinting, if someone hits you, then you fall over, and you don't want that to have happen. So effectively what it means is that it doesn't interact with the combat system directly because you can't do it while you're in combat. You have to effectively either, if you're running away from a monster, you dodge roll first and then you go into a sprint in order to run away, so that's fine. And if you're using it to go between pack to pack, then you effectively dodge roll at the end of your previous combat, like go into the sprint, and then you get to the next pack, you can launch straight into another attack that sort of brings you out of sprint mode immediately as you do that. But while you're actually fighting, you're not in a situation where the move speed's going to completely compromise the way the combat works. So you can pretty much outrun any monster in the game. So you do have that thing where, like, if you need to get out of there, that you have that option all of the time. But like in terms of in combat, we don't have to like re-engineer all the frickin' monsters in the game in order to deal with the fact that this exists, and that's kind of like one of the really important things that we had to do.
Yeah, previously you mentioned that if you can move quick enough, then combat becomes optional.
Yeah. And that definitely is the case now. Combat is effectively optional now. That like is just kind of one of the crosses I just have to bear with this. And obviously, there's the whole thing of like, but you want to kill the monsters, and that's true, you do. But yeah, definitely it is the case now that if you want to get out of combat, I should say that if you want to not be like in a swarm right now, that is definitely an option that you have. There are monsters that can kind of like almost keep up with you while you're sprinting, even if they're not faster than you. But you're pretty much, but I don't think there's any monsters now that are actually straight up faster than you. Like you can always run away, and like the few fast monsters that are chasing you become separated from the rest of the combat, and then you can kill them, that kind of stuff. So you've got kind of that going on as a combat mechanic now, and I think overall that it's an improvement. I was actually pretty worried. Like,
I'm gonna be honest, I don't like it. Sprint is needed, and I do like sprint. Because there's a lot of backtracking. You're running through massive maps where there's not much happening. Obviously the sprint is useful there. I don't like the whole like, I can just run away all the time. It makes it feel less dangerous. I don't like that my solution to dealing with stuff can just be run away and you're faster, right? I would like it to be that I needed to use my abilities to get out, right? Like in WoW, for instance, if you get into a situation that you can't handle, obviously monsters have a leash range, right? But some of them are faster than you. You don't always have movement ability that can reach out of the way, because a lot of the movement abilities that is like longer ranged ones, like where you sprint or whatever, they have longer cooldowns as well. You have to use your CC, you have to use your slows, your roots, your all that, right? And then get out that way. And I'm not necessarily saying that will work for PoE, but it makes it feel more dangerous. I don't like that I can just dodge roll and sprint away. And I don't think, as much as people were like whining about it, I do not think that this was the issue that they were having. I think the issue they were having were the monsters were fast, swarming them, because they couldn't kill them fast enough, because they had to press 16 buttons before they could do damage. That was at least a problem I was having, and none of that's going to be solved by movements. Yeah, now I can run away, but I still want to kill the mobs, right? And when I try to kill the mobs, I'll run into the same issue again. So, as a solution to the problem that was brought up in 0.2, I hate it. As a solution for other issues in the game, it's fine.
Even if I don't necessarily agree with something, I still like to try it to see how it feels. And this is one of those things where it's like, this is a thing that I think we can try, see how it feels. And after trying it, I would say that it does fit. It does work. You don't like. There are going to be people who are using it all the time. I think there are going to still be other people who don't feel like they need to use it all the time because the pace is kind of okay for them. So I think it actually manages somehow to fit into that situation where it doesn't interfere, but it does substantially improve it for the people who feel like they need that extra speed and like want to go through things faster.
You mentioned that when you're developing a game, you need it to feel fun. If it's not fun for you, what's the point?
Absolutely.
So with Sprint, does it feel more fun for you?
I would say that I was not a person who felt like I needed it. I would say that it's not that it made it feel more fun for me, it's that it didn't take away any of the fun that I was having, which is really important. Like it doesn't take away from that while still adding it for the people who do feel the need. And I know that like there are people like you who are probably you're much more of a clear speed guy than I am. I would say, at least that's like okay.
Sure.
I would say that you are. Like, okay, maybe you don't even feel like but you're living in a different lane from
honestly,
most other humans.
Like,
I would say
monster to pack combat, I'm like barely even using it.
Right.
I'd say the part where there's a couple instances which is just like, I hate this level, I'm going.
Sure. And I absolutely use it that way as well, right? It's like,
I'm either leveled enough, or it's like, you get that like min-maxing, I just need to get to the next area, that way I can, because it's way higher XP rate there, you just get the like zoom through a level.
But you can use it pack to pack as well. Like it's a thing you can definitely do.
Yeah, you can, but I find it's like, especially in maps, depending on the density.
It does depend on the density, right? For sure.
If you like pack and then to roll sprint for only like half a second to then do another pack, it's going to be pretty pointless. So. depending on that, depends how much you invest into things like, it depends on your movement speed already. It depends on, there's a lot of different types of builds depending on what they are. Like if you're just like kind of steamrolling stuff already using a bunch of different abilities, you're probably less likely to use it in that moment. But all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I missed the boss room down there, and you missed the checkpoint, and sure, you can fast travel kind of close, and then you're just like, all right, I'm just going to zoom over there now. It is like perfect.
So it's definitely a lot better for that. Yeah. It is definitely a lot better for that
for
as well.
Just like, oh no, I missed this quest object. It's probably in this corner, and so you're just like running over there. Like very, 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 very helpful in that regard. And I would 100% say increases fun by removing what it was probably one of the most unfun things, which is just running through a desolate area that you've cleared because you missed a bit in the corner, right?
It also has a side effect of making dodge roll slightly faster too. And the reason for that is because previously we couldn't, like the total time, if you were just doing dodge roll, that couldn't be faster than moving. But now it is actually allowed to be. So there was some slight tweaks to this because like since you can sprint anyway, it means the dodge roll can be very slightly faster. So there's a slight change there too.
Now, Jonathan also mentioned there are other
little
things
about
as
it
well,
earlier,
just to
that,
like, explain some of that. Like,
Matuma said that the dodge roll is painfully slow. It's going to be faster now. I'm assuming what it's going to do is whenever you roll, it's instantly you roll, and then at the end of it, it slows you down a bit while you're getting up. I'm assuming that's what's going to be gone.
Mercenary, for example, no longer slowed down while reloading.
That is a huge one. That for me is drastic. Like,
Big difference.
And the funny thing about that is that pre 0.1, it was actually kind of like that.
Yeah.
And it changed for various reasons. And so, like, honestly, for me, that makes the mercenary like to feel way better. And then shield blocking.
Shield blocking, less. You're minus 50 instead of minus 70, which is so you could look at it as you're 67% faster.
You're going from 30 to 50, which is a big bonus.
67% faster while you have your shield raised. There's a lot more investment, mostly on the big right half side of the tree, all the way from mercenary, all the way through to even sorceress for reducing the movement penalty while casting.
There's also the slight ramp increase, right? So the ramping speed from when you're at your slowest to when you go to your fastest, that recovers to full speed faster. There was like a tweak there, I believe.
I can't remember the number.
I don't remember the number. It's hard to quantify anyway because it's like But there's little tweaks like that to just make overall the smoothness, I guess, feel better. And I'm sure they'll even be.
I think PoE 2 felt really smooth. Even the slowing down on the dodge roll felt smooth. I guess I'm just gonna feel faster.
More of that sort of stuff to come in the next like month or so that we've got for development. So
I'm noticing a pattern of there's a significant amount of focus on previous feedback points. There's like with the crafting additions, for instance, the mid-game golf, the movement speed here. Is there any other major focus points you wanted to tackle you were not able to get done in 0.3?
Well, I suppose there's one thing we didn't talk about yet, but is another focus point that's really important on that list, which I should mention, which is trade, right?
Oh,
so
you're
trade's,
right.
Trade's a big one, right? Like that's a.
I want to ask you that trade question again for the fourth time.
Yeah. So trade, we have now fully asynchronous trade in PoE, not just for currency, right? So obviously currency's got it. We now have for items as well. I think it's going to change things very substantially. So that's going to be one of those big things. So you can go to people's hideouts. People will have an NPC in the hideout who will offer to effectively sell things on a market for you. You can give them items. You can set a price. Someone else can come to your hideout and buy those items where the buyer pays an extra gold fee that gets destroyed effectively. So this is kind of how the new trade system is going to work. I've pretty much hinted at this for a long period of time now.
The Japan interview.
But it's finally happening, I think it's going to change a lot of people's perception of.
And I saw they had somebody. I saw somewhere that they have a in-game item. Was it on QuinStream maybe? They have the in-game item search as well, so you don't have to go to the website anymore. It's so good.
Just like what it's like to play in an item economy.
They managed to finish it.
This was something I feel like you guys were fairly firm about before. What?
So it is. So basically, so here's the key thing, right? When trade is easier, what it does is it means that the like what most people would say is that it causes inflation, and that's one way to look at it. But the way that I kind of view this is effectively, if you look at the curve of like value to power, it makes it more exponential, right? You have like a huge flat part where like everything's valueless until suddenly everything's ultra expensive, right? Like that's kind of the thing you get. So the easier trade is to do, the more of that effect you'll get, right? If trade is like really, really hard, you get a pretty much flat curve where the value and the power kind of like line up. If as trade gets easier and easier, it becomes more and more exponential. And I don't think you want like completely linearity here. Like you do want a little bit of exponential, but we needed to find a way to effectively make it so that there is still something in trade that makes it not fully easy. But instead of it being a inconvenience factor, which is what it currently is, where like it's annoying to trade, so therefore you don't do it. Now what it is a gold cost factor, where you have to get gold in order to be able to trade. So now there's just a straight up like, I can afford this or I cannot afford this type of thing. And because in PoE, gold is bound, what's league bound technically, but it's bound to your account effectively. Because of that, it means that you won't get a situation where like someone just tosses some item for like a freaking transmute or something into the thing that they don't care about, and then you just buy that at low levels for nothing, and then you're able to effectively compromise the game experience that way. What it will kind of basically do is it'll feel a bit like,
I don't know who cares about that,
shot,
but whatever.
only the prices in gold are a bit more expensive, and then there's also like another price in currency that the other person's going to get. But then as you get towards the end game, like that effect of the gold will start to matter less, so I think that'll sort of work. But the other thing that having the gold means is that because you have to play to get it, and because it's destroyed when you buy things, the whole like flipping bots that like find things and like and able to like effectively high frequency trade the market, like that sort of stuff should be much harder because they're going to need to get gold from somewhere, and which means they have to play. So writing a flipping bot that kind of effectively exponentiates the market by like having this the HFT stuff should hopefully not be a problem. So when we start out, because we're like ultra afraid, we're probably going to pitch the gold costs like a little over, just to kind of make sure that this like not too bad, and then we should be able to lower them down if it's not a problem, like to the point where so basically what I'm saying is like if the gold costs are a little too high at the start, just like try and forgive us for that. We're like a bit afraid, like we like we'll creep them down as we feel like the economy's fine, assuming that everything's good, and then we should be okay.
What was the turning point in which you decided, okay, we are going to try a fully in-game related trade system?
I wanted to do it, this particular trade system, for a while. It's just been, a little bit challenging to get it across the line. But I think that...
It might have been my raging about everyone being AFK finally.
Yeah. I mean, that is the issue, right? That is the issue.
Of a frustration that we're like, okay.
It did get worse over time. Like the trade, behavior, like the behavior of players got worse. I mean, like in a way that's completely just because they're incentivized to, right? Like there's the whole incentive of you just chuck something and trade for nothing, and then if a bunch of offers come in, then you're like, oh, this is worth a lot, and I'll jack the price up. Like this is the incentive that like happened over time.
Point.
That really is the thing, right? And so like that behavior, and it's like, I know why people do it because it's like it's exactly the best way to get like to do stuff. But basically, because when you set something for trade now, someone could just come in and buy it. Like because of that, now you can't just do that anymore. You actually have to feel confident in a price.
100% the tipping point was when the more public acceptable meta became dump everything in a tab listed one divine, and if you get too many messages too quickly, you reassess it. Once that became it's growing more and more and more. Combined with the level of people who seemingly are just, I mean, they'll list things, I guess, for like 5C and with no intention of ever selling it because it's like an inconsequential amount of currency to them. And so when you're just trying to buy really cheap things, they're just like, I'm not going to leave my map for that, right? And sure, but annoyingly, it's listed, and some people are trying to buy it, and then they're just being like, I'm being ignored all of the time by everyone. So those things just became... So, I mean, sure, I say it's because of me. It becomes frustrating to pretty much a large majority of people.
So we effectively needed to find something that still had friction, but that friction was not that frustration. It was to just gold, right? Like I'm frustrated I don't have enough gold is a different type of problem than I'm frustrated that everyone's like doing these annoying behaviors, right? Like, and I think it's much more acceptable to players for that reason.
Do you expect this to fully resolve the trade-related concerns?
That is my hope. Like, I mean, look, there's going to be a lot of details to get right. Like, I mean, even just looking at it, like, for a few seconds, you can immediately start thinking of exploits, even with the system we've got, right? So there's stuff where, like, okay, so after you've priced something, we have to put a little cooldown on being able to reprice it so that, like, you can't just set a price and then someone comes and then now it's different. And then we're like, okay, so if someone clicks the item to travel to your hideout on the trade website, it, like, adds an extra little cooldown on that value so that, like, if someone's coming to buy it, you can't just, like, sort of see that that's happening and change it again. So there's, like, like little things like that we have to like work out in order to kind of make sure that that's right. And I'm sure there'll be more things that players work out to do that we didn't think of, and we're going to have to make some more adjustments. But like I think that once we've worked through all those, like whatever random cases there are, that should basically sort that problem out.
So that brings me back to my original question then. We've talked about trade, but was there something that you guys wanted to have addressed that you're hoping to address in the next patch?
Well, I would say that, like, so we've got a lot of in-game changes we're making, but I'd say that there are still more in-game changes to make.
Well, we discussed some of them with the storylines and the feeling they have more
exactly,
direction.
right?
That is one of them.
Yeah.
So in my whiteboard in my office at one point, we were like,
here's the tier list of player issues.
We listed every problem that we could find. I mean, and then kind of started going, okay, what is a tier 1 problem? What is a tier 2 problem? And then we derived it all down to T1 and T2 problems, and we were like, okay, this patch we better have the best bloody excuse in the world for it to have none of these tier 1 problems be solved or at least mitigated with a hope of future solution, and ideally every tier 2 problem as well. And so first thing was like cruel difficulty, like having to play through the campaign twice.
I don't think that was that bad.
And the problem is the answer to that is an act and an interlude, and it's like, okay, oh my goodness, we're already here and we're on to point number 1.
Well, something I should mention about that even though is that we weren't listing problems like the problem is called difficulty. We were listing problems like the problem, like, because the way a player would perceive it is the game is a slog. Like that is the actual problem a player has. So then it's like when you phrase it that way, you're thinking, okay, what are all the things we can do? So removing crawl is one thing, adding sprint is another, right? Like both of these two things are about that same issue, and it's like you really want to look at things from a player's perspective, not just a like what solution we might have in our idea list perspective, and that's kind of what's going to produce a more honest like actual answer. It's like what can be
100%.
So
so what I'm writing down obviously being not necessarily the problem, it's more of a keywords, so we know what the problem is. We look into a whole bunch of stuff.
Literally on Mark's board at the top of the list was the game is a slog. That was the thing that was written on that board. It's like, how are we going to solve this problem,
slog in quotes being that's what people call it.
Right.
And then I had trade, I had our recent things with the networking.
There was build variety was like a big
character. We had like character classes, which to us is like, okay, we need a
variety of builds.
Improve the builds, improve the characters, improve the underpowered skills, the wrong decisions, the bad decisions, like bring all of that up. And we just had this massive list, and we just literally worked through and we checked heaps, and we're like, okay, have we sufficiently addressed all that? Okay, we've at least done something for all. Like, where can we focus more of our attention? And we look at it again. And so this is where the essence change came from. This is where
towers,
crafting was on the list of like there's no mid-game crafting was a thing.
That should have been up there.
And then we were like, how do we know our list is accurate? We did that a few times, and we then went to Steam and had people obviously doing it for us as well. And we also looked ourselves, and we're like, okay. And then often, there's a post on Reddit. It's like, I remember after we did 021, I think, the community made a post. They're like, so now that loot is addressed, what's the next biggest problems? And they made a post, and we correlated that to our list, and we added some things and changed some things, and all of a sudden, like, we ended up with like a, here's everything we need to address. Let's make sure we're addressing it. And this is where it does get annoying. We were talking about earlier about having to cut stuff, where it's like, okay, now the data's fixed. And we're like, oh, okay, in order to solve all of this,
we need another
Can
month.
we do it in the time frame? And then it's like very hard to say, we have to move this, because then we're effectively saying we're going to keep this problem in the game, and that's really hard to stomach.
And that's where some of that in-game stuff, it's like in an ideal world, we would have had like all of those like in-game quest stuff for like, like a quest line for, for Delirium or whatever. That would have been a thing that we would do. But I think it is better to release, in a time rather than delay for another like couple of months and make sure literally everything is solved.
But also addressing, progressing, whatever you want to call it at the end of the day. 18 out of 20 things is a massive win. And I think that I'd say this patch, more than most, has a focus on like addressing concerns, responding to feedback, ideally through a lot of creative ways. People might not even create the link between what the problem was and what the solution is, but that's where we then keep an eye on it and make sure it has actually solved the problem. And then we move to the next set, and the next set, and the next set, and you just keep going. Like, you never stop, right? Like, I don't even think there is anything on that list that we made a while back, mind you, that is on the tier 1 problem list that we didn't address. Now, obviously, everyone's going to have their own definition of a tier 1 problem.
And I'm sure they'll find new tier 1 problems to have.
Yes, and that is the thing. There will be new, and some tier 2 things will get promoted to tier 1.
It's like, who knows what random thing that will just blindside us completely. That we're not expecting what
Dude,
happened,
I love it. I love the fact that it's just like, yeah, we're really upset right now with like the game being a slog or whatever. We're really upset about XYZ, right? Then they fix XYZ. Well, now we're really upset about this. And it's just such a smaller issue, but everybody just makes it up to be the same sized issue because everything else is fixed. It's there's been so many times, man, in so many games like PoE, Diablo, WoW, it's like, oh, this is ass, and then they address it, well, now this is ass, and then everybody complains about the new thing that's ass, which was ass before the other thing was fixed as well, but people just didn't really complain about it because the other thing was so ass, and then they bring it up to the same level.
Just even though we can't do, maybe the trade system goes out and it remains a T1 problem somehow. Who knows? But the point being, it's important, and I'd say it's a process we haven't done this extensively before, like Jonathan and I in particular, of going like, let's make sure that we're actually addressing all of these major concerns, or have an understanding as to when we're going to do it or why we're not doing it now versus later, because there's the right solution, and if we rush it, we'll make it even worse and becomes a T0 problem, and get some problems like that. So yeah, it was actually quite a cool process, and I'm pretty sure it's all still written on my whiteboard. So.
What's going to be your metrics of success for 0.3 release? Where are you going to look at to determine whether or not you feel satisfied?
Oh, that's a tough one, because really what it comes down to is I don't want to, well, this is more of a personal way to answer this question, but I don't want to feel bad about how players think about our game.
Oh.
Right? Like, as long as I feel like people are generally positive about where we're going, like, look, even if people have problems, like, I don't want to feel like people think that the game is somehow like that we're not going to solve them or something like that. You know what I'm kind of getting at there? Like, I feel like there was a bit of there was a certain like vibe going on with 0-2-0 of like GGG doesn't even understand the players and that kind of stuff, and that really bothered me, right? Like, I was kind of like, you know what? Like, I feel like if even if people have problems, like, that's kind of like, and we'll obviously try to solve them, but if they feel like we're never going to solve them, that's like really terrible, you know? Like, you do not want to feel that way. So like, to me, success is like if people feel confidence that we're actually moving in the right direction. That's the thing that I will be caring about.
Yeah, I have a like when I know the things didn't hit how we wanted it to. Like, I know people are unhappy with things and they're not playing. I actually really struggle to play. Yeah. Because I'm like, how can I be sitting here enjoying myself when all of these people that are our target audience aren't? Mm-hmm. And so often what ends up happening, and this is a real way to measure it, is that the more I get to play on the release weekend and that release week, the more I consider that success. And thus I get to play and I get to have fun with everyone. I have this like insane... I'm not allowed to have fun on the game if you know, if in general things are going badly. Like,
well, because then we're suddenly sitting in a room having emergency meetings and trying to work out.
Yeah, and so I just work the whole time, and I'm like, I need to fix, and I get into panic, and you don't sleep properly and all of that. But like, whatever, like a bit of boohoo to all of that. But ultimately, I just want to play the game and have fun. And
dude, the fact that he's like, oh, nobody cares that nobody cares that the developers are stressed. That's not an excuse. So he just made it sound so pathetic afterwards. Oh, boo-hoo. Because, yeah, I mean, as much as I'm, like, sympathetic towards them having to... Yeah, I mean, they work, right? Like, it's a job for them as well, yeah? It's not like they can just do it 24/7, right? They have to... They work 8 hours and then they should go home, right? And then, something goes wrong and maybe they work fucking 12, 14 hours, right? Like, I was like, obviously they shouldn't, but at the same time, I don't really think about that when something's not working, right? I'm just like, this is shit. And it's not like, oh, but okay, I mean, it's the weekend, they have to have weekend, right? Like, no, it's like, fix it before you release it, right? So... it is fun, but like it is kind of hard to be a consumer and still think about the guys behind the product because you just think, well, you shouldn't have fucking sold me the product or put it out before it was ready then.
Everyone. And so when I get to do that, like when a league goes smoothly and there's no, be it either crashes, networking, technical problems, or just like, you know, the game is misbalanced and all of that. And so I often get this point where when stuff does go wrong, and there's a sort of an inevitability to it to some degree, you get to a point where it's like now things are stable and I'm like, oh, finally, yes, I can now play and enjoy it with everyone. And that's like, so it sucks when that isn't straight away, and it sucks when that isn't like at least, you know, quite short. And so if I have to wait till all of a sudden Wednesday before I get to actually sit down and play properly, you know, it starts to feel a bit bad. So my measure of success is entirely the time frame between when it releases and when I get to feel like I can comfortably sit down and play without feeling bad for everyone. Because it does suck. It sucks when you miss the mark, like truly. And 020, 100%, we had a bunch of stuff miss the mark, and it felt terrible. But I'm sure it felt terrible because it felt terrible to everyone, right? Like, so hopefully, you know, this release goes nice, amazing, smooth. Like I believe we've done our strategies this time were very different, very much more focused on solving problems, solving issues,
improving what's there. Was definitely a focus this time.
Questioning ourselves, I mean, with the things like trade, with the things like sprint, making sure that we're not just stuck up in our ways kind of thing. Don't want any of that dinosaurism kind of going in where it's like, no, we refuse to do this. So like trying new things, compromising on things, doing things. And
I think it's quite remarkable with how adamant Jonathan is with how he wants the game and his vision, and how relatively uncompromising they've seemed, and like how defensive he has been in the past of the design of their ideas when it came to like larger sweeping changes, right? And criticism to an extent, not trying to make him sound like a devil or anything, but he has been very adamant that the solutions they've made for a reason, and it was a good reason, and they are better than we think or make them sound to be. The fact that he is then willing to make a compromise with Sprint is quite amazing, because you can hear that he doesn't really like it. He doesn't really want it. And I think that's really cool.
You know, I mean, I would even say a lot of that stuff surprises ourselves, and all of a sudden we're like, you know what? This is cool. Like, we were skeptical. This is fun. This is cool. People are going to love this. So a lot more of that coming in 03, I would suspect.
Well, let's end it on a fun note then. What do you think is going to be the thing that the players enjoy the most coming up?
What's going to be the thing the players enjoy the most? That completely depends on the power of some of the things. What I'm most excited about is the new mechanics for classes, like the infusions for sorcerers or the armor breaks for mercenary. Now, if Deadeye with lightning arrow and whatever changes it got is just way more powerful without introducing anything new other than deflect, which you're not really going to feel, then the players aren't going to feel that at all. Then there's the new crafting stuff, which is a massive contender for the things the players are going to enjoy the most, I think. That depends on the rarity, the availability of these things. If they are super rare, then I think it's going to miss the mark for enjoyment. It's just going to be there as like, okay, well, yeah, now I'm basically done with the game and I can finally craft my end game shit, right? Because realistically speaking, if you want to craft your items, right? You need, how many items do you have? You have boots, you have gloves, you have belt, you have 2 rings, you have an amulet, you have 1 or 2 weapons. Wait, let me take the armor first. Boots, helmet, body, and head. Then you have jewelry, you have belt, 2 rings, and an amulet. So that's 9 pieces. And then you have 1 or 2 weapons And then there's weapon swapping, right? But let's just say 11 then. Then you need 33 perfect exalts. And if they drop rarer than divines, how many people drop 33 divines in a game session? And that is assuming you hit it first time. Right? And I don't even necessarily think that that's just going to be like the Rolls Royce, right? Because we haven't gone for all tier 1s. We've gone for all tier 3s and above. With right stats, though. But yeah. We haven't gone for corruptions, extra sockets. We haven't gone from superior bases. We haven't gone for sanctifying stuff. So yeah, if they are really rare and people only really get to play with the second tier of them, like the greater ones rather than the perfect ones, then I don't think people are gonna really feel the difference that much. I think effectively, if you're slamming a greater exalt or a regular exalt, it's gonna feel just as RNG. Because there's so many shit rolls, even on a perfect. There's going to be even more on a greater, obviously. So the difference between a regular and a greater, obviously the greater one's better, but I think it's going to feel just as RNG as take the wheel. So yeah, those, if they're tuning them to be really rare, which I fear they will, I think that's going to miss then as well. An easy answer could be the lineage supports, but again, if they have tier 0 rarity, some of them, but then those are... there is the trade, right? And that's both for consumables and for lineage support. But it also depends on the price then, right? I guess the easy answer would just be that you can now use multiple supports, but that's also a little bit boring. I mean, for most players, it's definitely going to be the Act 4, right? Because most players doesn't make it to maps. Act 4 and the interludes is definitely going to be the... If you take the entire player base, that's going to be the highlight. But if you just look at the ones that actually play the game... and by that I mean reach the end game and play it. I think it's going to be one of those. But I like either the crafting or the character balance, the new... because a lot of the new additions to the classes and skills sound really fucking cool. So I think it will be that. It just depends on the power. Like, hopefully... And you would assume that they know what they're doing, right? So hopefully the power level of the new shit is going to be competitive, at least. If it's weaker than everything else, it's going to suck. And nobody's going to like it. But assuming the power level is comparable and perfectly introduces some strong shit, then I think that's going to be the favorite. But it could also be the lineage supports. They're really cool. But it depends on rarity. And the crafting stuff, if you actually get to use it, that is dope. But I fear you won't, really.
Excited for Abyss. I'm actually excited for the fact that this is our first PoE 2 league. And if you want to think of it, because I would, last league was core game. It wasn't really, it was like, okay.
Is that excited for Abyss? It shows up in every map. It is cool. But I think the novelty is going to wear off pretty quickly. It's just going to be something you kind of have to play around. It's just going to be something that you play around in the first couple of times. And then it's just going to be either you have to play around it all the time, which in itself I don't think is going to be all that great. It could also just be if you just run past, you kill things come up instantly, basically. It isn't going to... I fear it's going to be a little bit of kiting things close, which he did say you can't, so I'm unsure how it's going to work exactly. Maybe it must be that they have a debuff, they spawn with a debuff or whatever, a buff or whatever, and then you kill them. No matter where you kill them, they'll go into the hole. But then you're going to have to wait for the hole to spit out the next ones, right? And there's going to be some animation. It's not just going to be like they're going to jump up and not really be targetable. So it's going to slow you down. So I don't think Abyss is going to be remembered that fondly, because it is going to slow you down. It might be cool, but the novelty is going to wear off, and then it's going to slow you down, I think. So maybe it's just super rewarding, then it'll hold value, right? If it's one of those things where, yeah, it's definitely worth the wait, you don't feel like it slows you down because it is so valuable, then sure.
There's some spirits. You know what I mean? It was kind of a bit fluff. So this is like an actual league. It's an actual league, actual fresh economy, get to start, and it's like got a lot of narrative and depth and all of that. So I'm excited for that, because a lot of our players are not PoE 1 players, like a lot. And so a lot of these people might not even understand the concept of like a league and a fresh start and doing that. And so I'm kind of excited to see how everyone finds, like, you know, playing through the world again. You got a new act, you got a new interlude. Sure, the world has changed, the campaign has changed, but also now you've got this thing going on in every area that's like quite cool, and you're learning all this new stuff, getting new rewards and new items. So that's like my immediate the thing that straight away comes to mind. But new bosses is always fun. So
I think probably the change that I think, well, as long as we can execute it well, but I'm really hoping it's going to be the support gems. Like, it'll be, like, I think that'll be, like, I'm really hoping that's going to be the thing that people find the most entertaining. Yeah, I really do.
For our existing and more advanced players, well, even lower levels as well, but, like, especially for the more advanced players, that will be a huge one, 100%.
There's definitely, like, I think the support gems aren't hitting right now for a few reasons. Like, part of it's the recommendeds being bad and, like, things like that. There's stuff like that, and I really want to make that part of the game, the feeling of leveling up.
Is the support gems really going to be that big? Like, I'm not that good at PoE, neither 1 nor 2. Like, I did run into a little bit of, I want to use this, but I can't because I'm using it on this thing, and then there's nothing I really want to use, so there's no reason for me to, like, level this thing up. I did run into a bit of that. Not too much, but a little bit, where I was like, well, I don't have anything to put in. It's like, okay, well, there we go. I didn't run into too much of it, though. And I think I solved that pretty quickly as well by then swapping something around. I feel like I remember doing it a little bit on the monk, but fixing it when I swapped to the Herald tech and to the cold version with still keeping the lightning thing, because all of a sudden the things I would want to put on the lightning thing, I would put on as like all of a sudden the things that I couldn't fill on, or maybe I'm misremembering. I think I'm misremembering it. I never really ran into it that much. And is it really gonna make that much of a difference? Like, you're gonna have, I don't see it. Like, the change for them to level up is gonna be cool. If they get more powerful when you level them up and don't just start at a lower level power and then level up to what they were before, it's gonna be cool. I expect it's going to be something in the middle where they start lower and they end higher. The lineage supports, those are cool. I'm excited for those. But, like, just being able to use multiple of the same support, I don't really see it.
I want to get out of that, like, level 40 ditch of, like, not feeling player progression. And
oh yeah, that is, if that is the case, then sure. But that then also requires a little bit that they level up from what they were there, right? Because otherwise you're just going to be weaker before that.
I really want that to sort of feel better. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping will be the thing. It's a little hard to tell right now because there's still a lot of balance going on. There's a lot of changes happening at the moment. So yeah, but I'm really hoping that's going to be what it is.
Okay, well, think you answered all the questions. Appreciate you taking the time. 0.3.0, August 29th.
No problem.
I guess 30th for you guys.
Yeah.
For the rest of us.
Thanks very much for being here. It's been a lot of
cheers.
fun. It's been a lot of fun having you over.
It's
So
been quite enjoyable.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
This is so cool. I think they dropped. We have 5 more minutes, so there's not much point in going back to RimWorld. I think they dropped the announcement of the stuff.
Exile.
In-game thing.
Hi.
Yeah, there it is. Here it is.
Offline.
Oh, Jesus.
But one feature.
Let's go.
During the Third Edict content reveal, we announced the new asynchronous trade system that allows you to purchase items instantly from other players, even when they're offline. But one feature we didn't quite have ready in time for the reveal is the in-game market browser. Well, it's ready, and we know a lot of players have been looking forward to this one. Open the browser by clicking here. Search for the item you're looking for, then click the purchase button to be immediately teleported to that player's hideout, where you can purchase the item from their shop.
I'll get it here quick smart.
They don't even need to be online. Almost all the functionality of the website is available here.
Did he have it in his bag, the one Exalt?
Been looking forward to this one. Open the browser by clicking here. Search for the item you're looking for.
Are you not going to play it, Potato, or do you have no interest in it? Because there's a free weekend from the 29th. You can play it, you can try it for free.
Then click the purchase button to be immediately teleported to that player's hideout, where you can purchase the item from their shop.
I'm a little bit disappointed that you have to have it in your bag, but it does solve the issue where people will try and cheat you, and it being a perfect Exalt, right? So you don't accidentally just buy something for a perfect Exalt because you'd need it in your bags.
I'll get it here quick smart.
They don't even need to be online. Almost all the functionality of the website is available here. You can search using many different filters, sort everything how you want, and buy it instantly. Happy trading. During the Third Edict content reveal, we announced...
This is going to be so good, man. Oh, we should see if there's something else I did. I was a bit quick here. Let's see. Nah. I think it's all good. I'm a little bit sad I didn't get the Twitch drop, but I forgot to watch it. Yeah, this was super cool. Yeah, I'm gonna call it for today. Thank you guys for watching. I'll be back tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope I'll see you tomorrow. We will do the same again tomorrow, I think. Start with RimWorld and then go into some PoE 2 in the afternoon. We have the patch notes. I think there's an interview with, was it Talkative Try, I think. I'll look into it a little bit. I think there should be a little bit more juice for us to find. And then probably Friday is going to just be patch notes. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I'll see you tomorrow. Same time. Have a good one, guys. Bye-bye.